Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Deciphering the SaaS Landscape webinar, How Hired Found Savings and Control Through Strategic SaaS Management. In this webinar, we'll explore how Hired successfully managed their SaaS landscape and achieved savings and control through strategic SaaS management. But before we get started, we have a few housekeeping rules. For an optimal connection, we recommend using computer audio in place of your telephone. All microphones are automatically set on mute to limit background noise. And please submit any questions through the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. We will address all questions at the end. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Hired's Director of IT Operations, Michelle Chan. Go ahead and take it away, Michelle.
Thank you for the lovely introduction, Tracy, and for having me today. I'm very excited to be able to share Hired's SaaS management journey and our continued partnership with Torii. For those who are unfamiliar with Hired, we are a hiring marketplace and assessments platform that combines real-time data, a proprietary AI algorithm, and high-touch customer service to give both employers and candidates the most transparent and efficient path to Hired. Check us out on hired.com. In today's webinar, we're going to be talking about the modern SaaS landscape, how Hired approach SaaS management from our strategy, the search for a SaaS management platform, our implementation phases and the goals that we wanted to achieve, our results, and top takeaways. Lastly, we'll save time for Q&A. Now, the reality of SaaS applications have been growing in numbers, and there are no signs of slowing down. You'll see ads on your social media feeds and emails, which compels people to sign up and try their product. Depending on your security policies, this can be a challenge to keep up with, especially if you have distributed teams. Hence, how can you contain shadow IT as it creates blind spots? And you may be asking, what are these blind spots? Well, it prevents an accurate count of your applications, usage, renewals, especially if you have someone who subscribes to a subscription on a credit card, total spend, not to mention the security concerns about the data you are sharing and how it's stored for these unsanctioned applications, which also leads to concerns about offboarding and if an account has been truly offboarded from all in-use applications. Now let's talk about how we identified our path. In order to find your path, you have to start at the beginning. And as you take a look at this slide, you might find yourself in a similar situation, having outdated or incomplete data from spreadsheets, which then can cause a challenge because how can you accurately forecast your budget if you don't have all the information you need? Next, too many manual tasks. When it comes to offboarding, having to manually look up application access by the individual, tracking down contracts, and of course, ongoing spreadsheet upkeep. With all of this information in mind, we wanted to prevent excess spending, analyzing if you have duplicate applications, spend from unsanctioned applications, taking a look at whether licenses are being utilized so that you could adjust. Of course, you also want to eliminate any surprise renewals. Now let's bring this into context. Vettery acquired Hired back in 2020. Our employee count grew by 35%, which led to an increased tech stack. We needed to be able to decipher all of our contracts and applications, consolidate, and effectively manage all of our SaaS tools, which is where Torii came in. Let's take a look at our SaaS management platform search. Now, before we conducted our search, we had to ask ourselves, what were we actually looking for out of a SaaS management platform? Essentially, we needed the data to be accurate. What applications were being used, license allocation, and utilization. centralized contract management, automations to give us data insights so that we could right-size those contracts. And as a bonus, if these workflows and automations were easy to build and customize. With many competing priorities, we needed to be able to have quick wins and find a solution that was agile enough to grow with us and scale. Assessing our options. So what we did was conduct proof of concept trials with 4 prominent SaaS management platforms. And amongst all of our stakeholders, Torii met all of those needs and was scalable. Now being equipped with Torii, we broke down our implementations into 3 phases. Phase 1, understand and create an action plan. We wanted to have those initial quick wins. When we first connected to Torii, we discovered that we had about 300 applications when we were more anticipating 100. So with this information, we had to define what was a business application from personal. With this increased data, we were able to identify users, owners, utilizations, and expenditures per app. And furthermore, reduce risk through automated offboarding for former employees. Phase 2, control and scale. In order to prevent future excess spending, we need to first observe our utilization, understand where we could downgrade, reclaim, and reharvest licenses, eliminate redundant apps, and prevent surprise renewals. So when it came to our contracts, we were able to set up notifications for 30, 60, 90, which is in line with our approval workflows. Phase 3, mature practices, and of course, ongoing improvements. We wanted to have a place to have centralized contract management, customize automations workflows, and procedures that align with our IT policies in regards to unsanctioned app usage. And of course, continuing to look into more cost-saving opportunities. Let's take a look at our results after 1 year. We were able to eliminate duplicate applications and right-size our contracts based on license utilization, which led to a savings of 1.7 million thus far. In regards to offboarding, the process is completely automated. It's triggered in real time, and we were able to eliminate any offboarding related risk. We were able to eliminate any surprise contract renewals with advanced notifications, up-to-date contract data, and of course, license data, which was easy to find within the platform. What we love about Torii. Torii was able to give us more IT control and less burden on personnel. We had full visibility and insights into our usage, which led to better data-driven decisions with built-in audit trails, especially those who have SOC and internal audits. As a result, within your workflows, you'll be able to see a detailed log, which shows that information, which is handy for those audits. Significant cost savings, and we had a modern and consolidated tech stack. Top 5 takeaways for success. How you find success is different for everyone. But most importantly, you have to be proactive, define exactly what you need from a SaaS management platform, invest into understanding your chosen solution, create a plan that delivers quick wins and ongoing advantages, and of course, select a vendor who will partner with you in your SaaS evolution and will grow with your needs. And I'll turn it back to Tracy for any questions that came in.
Yes, Michelle, we do have questions coming in. The first one is, how did you get all of your stakeholders aligned on adopting an SMP, and Torii more specifically?
Great question. You'll always want buy-in from your stakeholders. For Hired, we had a mutual goal with our finance department in order to identify our SaaS spend, license allocations, and manage our contracts. Once we as IT understood the capabilities of Torii from this aspect, we had a tailored demo that explored Torii's financial system integrations and expense matching. Then we reviewed how contract management and renewals were handled within the platform. We did review several SMP solutions as we discussed earlier, and Torii was the clear standout for all of us amongst the company.
Great. Another question. Can you describe more about the vendor evaluation phase? How long was the POC, and when did you know which vendor to choose?
It really depends on the vendor. In my experience, some can take a few days to a week. Then depending on the vendor itself, they may allow you more time to do a more thorough review on your own. The most important aspect is to find a vendor that will partner with you. And if you ask for more time, more often than not, they'll give it to you. Investing in a solution is a big decision, and no one wants to invest time and resources and then decide to transition to something else. It's not a good experience for all those that are involved, and you want to make sure the solutions satisfy your needs. Then you could kind of nitpick and look at the nice to haves or what you might want.
Great. Another question here. Can you talk a little more about how the acquisition of Vettery played into the situation? How did you harmonize processes both for employees and for IT?
As a company, we were already starting to look for solutions to better manage our SaaS. Some of this was spurred on by our internal company audit. When Vettery acquired Hired, we had to quickly analyze our vendors as we had contracts from the same vendors. So we needed to be able to consolidate, develop a migration strategy, and part of that we knew would be ongoing management.
Okay, next question. What was the most difficult aspect of changing to SaaS management? What would you have done differently?
Before you could think about the evolution of SaaS, you have to remind yourself of what it was like before. Previously, companies had on-site infrastructures where you are able to monitor everything from in-house. However, things change and you need to evolve. If you think about file storage, it seems like a very simple thing, but the more file storage you have, it costs money, which made cloud services and platform as a service more attractive. And inherently, SaaS applications were giving you more flexibility to go beyond the walls. So when you do start to make that transition, you realize then you have a landscape of many different applications. And it might be difficult to understand what's really out there. Hence, a SaaS management platform allows you to understand your landscape, and hopefully within the same solution, you could take a look at your costs and manage your contracts more efficiently.
Great. It looks like we have time for just one more question, but first I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question, we'll be sure to follow up after the webinar. The last question is, what research did you conduct before selecting an SMP? How did Torii align with your researched best practices?
At a previous company, we used a competitor to Torii. However, it was very financially driven, and had a lot of manual aspects to it. So when on the search for a new SaaS management platform, there was more to be had. We didn't want something that was one note. We wanted to be able to have that data be automatic, not always manually inputted. And when it comes to best practices, I think it just comes back to defining your path and the top 5 takeaways that we previously said. You need to be able to define what you need and make sure it hits the notes for not only your department, but amongst different stakeholders. Because once you have that buy-in, you'll realize that you'll be able to evolve how your solution and make it more tailored to you.
Thank you again, Michelle, for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you for having me.